From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, a show about Star Wars pop culture and the ultimate adventure, life itself. I'm Ken Napsok.
I'm Joseph Scrimshaw, and boy, has life been adventuring a lot for everyone, it feels like.
Quite the adventure. We are here to talk about Star Wars news, breaking news from a long time ago, which includes last night, last week, and I'm sure the news that will drop right after this episode comes. It was a slow news week, which means there'll probably be an explosion this week of scoops and rumors and news and castings, and Sean Levy's got 9 films to make, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Before we get to that, we'd like to remind you that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. As always, we like to recommend a book, and I'm sticking with it. I almost changed it. It was good for last week's, but I like the idea of The Legends of Luke Skywalker by Ken Liu. See it again, read it again for the first time, or listen to it again for the first time. Download your free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audiobook. Help you, help us. It's a good deal. Joseph, we do have some asks/updates, an A and a U going on here as we look forward to building more on Patreon.
Almost the entire alphabet. Yes, we want to thank everyone who has been so supportive on Patreon over the years. It is our number one thing that keeps us going, so we continue to be focused on trying to grow that. We reached a goal a while back, and we did a private live stream for patrons only, and it did end up being kind of private. There were some things said, there were some Furbies shown that might not happen publicly. Some long Furbies made their internet debut. So our next goal that we're building to is 430 paid patrons on Patreon, and when we reach that, Jennifer had the wonderful suggestion of adding some images to a classic episode, audio episode of Star Wars Ranked, and we'll release that as a special video with new and exciting images. We also want to remind people that we are on Blue Sky. We're still on some other places, but we're not happy about it. So please join us on Blue Sky specifically. And final thing, Ken, that I'm very excited about is the thing that we have been discussing for quite a while, which is revising the way that we do questions from our kind ForceCenter supporters, listeners, viewers. So I'll be posting on Patreon, as I've done in the past, a request for Star Wars questions. But what we're going to do is we're going to experiment with doing the questions live. So we're going to do a live stream where we'll answer one of the questions that are pre-submitted, and then we'll just take questions from the chat. So we are going to do this noon Pacific time next Monday, which is February 10th. So if you're interested in joining us in this experiment of doing questions live, you can join us noon Pacific, Monday, February 10th.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to this live. It's fun to just interact with everyone. I love it when we do it on the monthly Q&As, the private live streams, all those things. But this is going to be a good way to kind of change things up just a little bit. In our 11th year broadcasting, it's good to kind of look around and go, what can we do different? What can we do with some new energy? And this is going to be a lot of fun, so I'm excited about it.
Me too.
Me too. Doctor. Hey, everybody. We are going to get to news, but first, we are going to catch up with life adventures. And if you can tell in the circles under my eyes, Joseph, I don't know if I've had any good adventures, but being here is the adventure. Being here is the resistance. Being here and being able to find some joy. But what about you? And then maybe I'll think deeper about me.
Yeah. I mean, your life adventures can be a challenge. That's good storytelling.
It's been a challenge.
Doesn't always have to have a happy ending. Yeah, I mean, I think among the many challenges I've been thinking about is, some very specific actions have been taken by very specific midlife crisis billionaires that make me want to use the small little drop of power that I have, that's my time and money, and make different choices. So things that I would maybe normally order from a real convenient website, I've been going out into the world to get, and I went and picked up physically in person the rest of the High Republic Phase 3 books that I'm missing. So now I have those mountain of ketchup that I hope to do on High Republic. So that was a real specific Star Wars adventure. And then I had a very strange Qui-Gon Jinn meets David Lynch adventure this weekend. across the globe, but a lot in Los Angeles. There have been all of these showings of David Lynch's films, and they've been selling out right and left in
Mm.
Los Angeles, and not just small little movie houses. The Grauman's Egyptian Theater, which seats hundreds, has been selling out right and left. And so on Saturday, I just checked, going like, is there any way they might have opened up some tickets to this film? And they had. So I changed my plans on Saturday and walked to the Egyptian Theater and saw Lynch's film that I'd never seen in the theater, Wild at Heart. And here's where it meets with Qui-Gon Jinn. Qui-Gon Jinn's whole "your focus determines your reality" perspective. Lynch always wants to balance light and darkness in his films. He's talked about this in interviews, and sometimes it is more dark. And Wild at Heart has a couple of like truly disturbing scenes. I saw them on VHS when I was a kid, and some people got so disturbed they left the room. So I had it in my head of like, I like Wild at Heart, but it's so disturbing. Now the parts that are dark, they're real dark and they're real disturbing. They're real probing of why are humans like this. Genuinely upsetting. But in terms of balance, there's only a couple scenes that are really, in my opinion, deeply disturbing. And a vast amount of the film is funny and joyful. It's about a young couple who loves rock and roll and sex positivity and wants to dance and drive and have fun, and then all these negative forces that don't want them to feel that joy. And so it's easy, like I did for decades, because I was with people who were deeply disturbed by the disturbing scenes, to focus only on that's a disturbing movie, and to see it in a theater with hundreds of fans, some who had seen it before and some who hadn't, and to laugh and cheer at the joyful moments and realize that that film is far more joy. And it doesn't need to be defined just by the darkness. It should be defined by the absolute moments of just absurd, ridiculous joy. I was like, I feel like Qui-Gon Jinn is sitting here watching David Lynch's Wild at Heart with me.
I love there's a phenomenon that you as you grow up, certain things, movies, events, just kind of this is what they are gets told to you, and maybe you're too young to figure it out, or like I said, I'm trying to think of an exact example that's going to maybe ruin the story, but and then you kind of go back and revisit things, and you're like, oh, there's something a whole lot more here. This isn't what I was told. This isn't what I thought. This isn't the perception. There's a reality here. That's very fun. That's a good experience, especially something you love.
Yeah, it was really great, and I think the communal experience of seeing things in a theater. I know they're expensive, and I know a lot of times if you go to a first run movie, there are people on their phones and blah 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 blah. But man, if you have a chance to go to a theater where people really want to be there and watch the movie, not a phone in sight, hundreds of people, and is great.
That's a great experience. That's a great experience. I wish I had that experience. I didn't have any bad experiences this week. The only thing, I'll tell you, you're talking Qui-Gon, I'll talk young Anakin, and him saying, Mom, you see the biggest problem in the world is no one helps each other. I've been delivering food on the side right now. It's been a tough run for me, but I'm not alone. I got so many people, even I know, in this boat, and we're just trying to survive. So I had a very long run, a 33-minute, like 38-mile kind of, they're not 38 miles, but like, it's felt like it. It was from the valley to Wilshire Boulevard in Hollywood.
That's a hike.
That's a hike on a Friday night. And I get over there and I deliver it with a smile, and was received with a smile. And I got no tip.
None.
Just none. And I drove home thinking, and there was nothing that went wrong. I actually got there early, everything I could do and I just like, what are we doing here? Like, what are we doing here? And it's easy to see the negative side of that, but I'm just trying to survive, as we all are. But so maybe think of Anakin, and I don't want to be what he became. I don't want this to drive me into darkness. I'm gonna push forward and find the next person I can make happy. There you go. That's my Star Wars life adventure.
I can, man. I love that sound cue when it's very sad, but that sound cue when his mother has passed and attacked the clones, and he decides to do the unthinkable. I hear that sound in my head a lot. The crazy strings.
It's that and Tracy Flick in the 1990 film Election, Reese Witherspoon, when she starts losing it, there's always like this weird like. "Ah, na, na." So we'll combine those. That's what I felt. I drove past your house. Won't dox you. Drove past your house. Like I should just stop inside and get a drink. What if Joseph's got some
Yeah.
whiskey?
Oh, we got plenty. Yeah.
Well, there you go. There you go. Your focus determines reality, and for the love of God, help people. Help people out there. It's the time to look for people in your life, in your sphere, in your world that you can help. Let's get to some Star Wars news. Some good news, breaking news in terms of last night, so we get to talk about it. Star Wars won some awards. Look, awards for art, it's always a weird, delicate game, but it's a good thing, and it's something to celebrate here tonight. Last night was the Saturn Awards. What are the Saturn Awards? Well, they're awards presented annually by the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films. I've been in town for a long time. Been aware of the Saturn Awards for a long time. I still don't really know what that is. Do you know? Have you met a member? I think I know some members of the Saturn Awards team.
I feel like how could I not?
Yeah.
But I also feel like if they were members of that, they would just be telling me always.
I'm gonna check. Check.
Yeah. That's weird.
I don't want to
go to the Magic Castle. I don't know.
And none of this is to. These are just like the 52nd year. These are good awards. I don't want to make it sound like I'm like downgrading it. Or it just was. I was really thinking about this last night. I saw some friends of mine at the event. I'm like, do they vote? I'm gonna text them today. I'm gonna find out. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is the like they don't have oomph. Sadly, in Hollywood, I think it's one of those things where the larger industry, no matter how much money genre makes them. They're still a little looking down the nose. And I think because these are genre awards voted on by people who actually love genre, that I don't think they move the needle. You win an Academy Award and Emmy, you can kick some doors down and get some meetings. The Saturn, or maybe get you a Zoom call.
Yeah. Oh, as if you win the Saturn Award and it's like Peter Falk from Princess Bride, like, no, well, that's nice. That's nice. Just not paying attention. or even the King. Well, won't that be nice? But hey, we are here to celebrate these wins. These are cool. Star Wars got some wins. The Bad Batch won the Best Animated Series for the third year in a row. That's actually really cool. Had some stiff competition this year, Bad Batch did. So this is not an easy victory. The X-Men 97 reboot or redo, Batman Cape Crusader, Star Trek Lower Decks, very popular, Kaiju number 8, and Gremlins The Wild Batch, which I didn't know was out there, but hey, it was nominated. So it is the third win here for the Best Animated Series, something I think I say often, maybe when I'm trying to be too cool, that Bad Batch is my favorite Star Wars television, but I mean it in my heart. It absolutely is just an experience I enjoyed episode to episode. So big win for that. More wins, but what do you think about Bad Batch there?
Yeah, I think it's great knowing the competition it was up against. I thought X-Men 97 was very well done. People love Lower Decks, so I think it's I think a really great honor that the entire series won every year. And I think it's well deserved because I think the animation is fantastic. I think it's so well written, and I think it is so well directed too, to just make every element help tell the story. It's so well done.
Pitch perfect. I think it's time for a rewatch. I might need the hope of a good Bad Batch rewatch, though. Has some darkness in it, as we know. Another win to talk about and celebrate is Rosario Dawson. She won Best Lead Actress in a Television Series. This included some absolute wonderful performances. Jodie Foster from True Detective, Emma Darcy, and their performance in House of the Dragon, Denai Guerrera from Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, Catherine Hahn, Agatha Long, Elia Purnell, and Melissa McBride from The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon. And I'm going to say, but I did not know there was currently 2 Walking Dead spin-offs out there right now. I don't watch a lot of TV.
It's like a fantasy show where, like, a story where, like, a big crystal gets shattered. Like, yeah. Okay. I didn't know that she had joined the Daryl Dixon cast, but Melissa McBride was fabulous in the main Walking Dead show. She was one of those, like, give me some basic script and I'll make it a meal.
I love that. Well, big win for Rosario from Ahsoka. So what do you think? Yeah.
That is actually huge. Now that I hear the list, because I've watched almost all of those things. And, hey, Jodie Foster's a pretty good actor. And that show put her through her chops, the True Detective show. And the Denai Guerrera is
Mm,
that was also some hard stuff that she did in that
mhm.
Walking Dead spinoff, which was great. Um, God,
Yeah.
everybody on that list. Who else was on the list?
Emma Darcy
I
and
don't.
their
Yeah.
yeah, I know you haven't taken House of Dragon yet. Their performance House of Dragon, especially the second season, is amazing. It's yeah, uh, they go to places, and to see them nominated is great for me as a Game of Thrones fan. But I would have thought that would have been the winner. Not even seeing the other ones. But hey, this isn't about. It's just about getting to the dance.
Hmm.
The win is just bonus. But this is great for Rosario Dawson and Ahsoka, the series, and the fans of the series who absolutely connected with this version of a character. And it's a not different version. It's a grown up, more mature, if not a little more sad and depressed version of the Ahsoka we all fell in love with. So that's different to play, and she had to bring her own choices to this role, and it's working, or at least it works here.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is really an amazing win
Mhm.
given all of the other actors. I don't I don't think I have nothing negative to say about Rosario Dawson's performance, but I do think it's really interesting. She was asked to play an older version of the character whose main conflict, in my opinion, through a great amount of the show is does not want connection, only wants to say the minimal cryptic things that she says needs to say to get what she wants and doesn't want to engage in deeper conversation. She has a great breakthrough episode with Anakin and then becomes a little bit more effusive and emotional. But a ton of her work is to play stoic. So I just think, and I think she did a very good job at that. I sometimes feel like, in my opinion, the writing could have given her a little bit more to work with, even within the stoicism, in my opinion. But I just got to say, whoever those voters are for Saturn, they really love less is more acting because
Yeah,
almost all those other stories and actors that I know, those characters went through hell and back, and they had to play everything. And I
right.
feel like a lot of Rosario Dawson's performance was a sort of masterclass in how do you play extremely reserved. You're trying to contain everything.
Agreed. Agreed. And love to see the character go forward into a newer version that connects a little bit to her past version too. And I think that's kind of in the works. But yeah, great stuff. Great stuff. Like I said, in an era where the success of Star Wars is often debated, it's good to see a little validation. Again, a win, an art win, is a weird thing. I know it's a weird thing. I'm getting weird phone calls here. Hold on. Oh yes, sorry.
I wonder if there's an element of, this is the genre show, so I wonder if there is also like, hey, everybody did a great job, but y'all played humans,
Yes, yes,
and we're gonna vote for the alien who got to lead a show. You
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. You all don't have lightsabers. Swords, maybe. No, not even a sword. You dragon with fire. So there you go. But that's right. No, absolutely good call. One of the greater swords in pop culture, sci-fi. And then the final award. This one I almost missed it scrolling down here. Mark Hamill picked up a Saturn Award for Best Guest Star in a Television Series for his work in Netflix's The Fall of the House of Usher. I didn't watch the show. Grace did, but I would stop on the way to the kitchen. I would stop if Mark Hamill was on screen, and I can confirm it was good.
He was fantastic. I think I love Mike Flanagan. I didn't connect with that one as much,
Mm-hmm.
that show as much, but I thought Mark Hamill was phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, look, and this is. I always say this. You were there, man. You were there in the '80s, man. Talk about things that as you grew up as a kid and the perception. The perception was that Mark Hamill didn't move on from Star Wars. That I had, at least in my circles. Like he did
Mhm.
that Corvette Summer, and that was kind of it. And then he showed up again in a Kevin Smith movie. And he was like, hey, and he has this now wonderful celebrated career in voice acting that began immediately. But that just
Mhm.
wasn't. It was a different time where that wasn't. You didn't know the voice actors back then like you do now, which are so blessed we do now. And then there was just kind of this. Harrison's the star, Carrie's Carrie, and Mark just kind of got left here. That's just not the truth. But to see
Mhm.
now, Last Jedi, where a lot of people are like, an Oscar nomination would not have been out of the question. In fact, maybe should have happened. And to see this, where he shows up at a series, it's not a stunt casting. It is maybe Flanagan's clearly a Star Wars fan. Sure, get Mark Hamill, but it's I just love seeing it. And this is when an award does kind of mean something to me, a longtime Star Wars fan, that Mark's always been this talent.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, in like the 90s when he was doing the Joker, that kind of spread around my nerd friends that Luke Skywalker is doing the voice for the Joker, and there was like great rejoicing. But then, like, even kind of in the prequel era, among other Gen X people my age, there was sort of an agreement that his performance was not as good in the original trilogy, which is one of the few things that would make me extremely nerd angry. I think he's it's not like Mark Hamill got real talented. His performance in the OT is phenomenal, and it's great to see him get all of these opportunities to show his versatility. This role was really, I think, different for him, and he just sunk his teeth into it. And I think Mike Flanagan really gave him a gift with this role.
Yeah, no, and you're right. Yeah, and I'm just trying to share the honest from the mean streets of the '80s, where that just kind of was the talk on the playground of what happened to him. What happened? He was always there, but now we get to celebrate it more. And I have grown up and just see. I think it's even in the Empire Dreams talk when you realize that's the first time I realized it 20 years ago, where like he's on the call sheet with snakes and iguanas. That's him. And you got Frank Oz, but like he's a puppet and iguanas, and he's carrying so much of the load there, and it's just wonderful. Anyways, there you go. Celebration of Mark Hamill.
Excellent.
I'm trying to see if there's any breaking news. I actually live to tape. Here we go. I think it's just all right. So there's some new stuff from George Nolfi. We'll get into it, but it's nothing that I'm looking over this little bit here, and it's nothing I would call breaking news, Joseph. Okay.
Is it he just talking about I'm real excited to be working on this project?
Yes.
Blah, blah, blah?
Yes. That's what's going on. I was getting a couple texts. That's why the phone was going. So,
okay.
I was just making sure that we didn't suddenly have George Lucas to direct episode 13. We'll see. All right. Some other stories to cover. New Star Wars manga set between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker was announced and is coming out. And a lot of ForceCenter friends in our Discord really excited about the news. I know you want to talk about it too. The news is that Viz Media will be releasing a new Star Wars manga written by Kenny Ruiz. The main character is a young scavenger named Nyoka, and they dream of becoming a Jedi. They stumble onto a lightsaber in an old Republic ship, which we'll talk about that. I love that keeps happening in things. Others are there others are after the blade as well, which means it's a pursuit for a lightsaber. Nikaya is described as someone who idolizes Luke Skywalker, and part of the story seems to revolve around them coming to terms with the news of Luke's passing. More will be revealed at Star Wars Celebration. Joseph, what do you find intriguing about this manga, the story, and this news?
Oh, just about every part of it. But I think the fact that the manga is centering on that great idea in The Last Jedi that Luke's actions on Crate are they're multi-layered, right? They are literally slowing Kylo and the First Order down and literally saving the Resistance. They're showing Rey that she was right to have hope in the Jedi and right that the galaxy needs the Jedi, but also the whole through line about the spark of hope. And the end with the kids, Niho Zaya being the storyteller with the action figures telling the story. I always wanted that thread of the story of Jedi Master Luke Skywalker saving the Resistance and keeping the spark alive. And that's what the Jedi are for, defense and knowledge and hope. I always wanted to see the ways that rippled out through the galaxy. And I understand why the Rise of Skywalker didn't spend as much time on it. I understand even why the book Resistance Reborn doesn't deal with it. So something that seems like it's, hey, we're going to tell our own story with our own characters, but that spark of hope that was lit by Luke Skywalker's daring and creative action, I feel like that deserves being the motivating factor of a story.
Yeah, right there with you. I find it really intriguing just that they're willing to explore it in any kind of new Star Wars storytelling, and this could hopefully lead to more. We'll talk about that, but it's an intriguing timeline. We got a year or so. I don't even know about the canon times anymore, but we got to add about a year between the films, right? And so there's ample ground to explore, study, and that this does its own thing with an original character in a medium that people love. But we know that it's going to deal with something this big. This makes it exciting and something that even if I initially go, that might be not something I'm going to pick up. That now my eyes will be on it, and that's great. That's a good thing going into Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah, I'm excited, and the connection to High Republic is great. Even though the initiative will be wrapping up, I'm glad that there continues to be sort of inspiration and connection to it. And who knows if there'll be flashbacks and we'll learn about where that lightsaber came from and all that. And manga storytelling, in my limited experience, is often a little bit kind of wild and weird, and values world building and being creative and really different. And I like that in Star Wars. I think almost everything in Star Wars should be a big weird swing.
I agree. For that too. Yeah, it's the big swings are inherent in manga. I think that's the way to look at it. And First Order will be involved, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, as far as the High Republic thing, I laugh a little bit, only in a good way. Where now, like Star Wars Outlaws, one of the things I've had to do is climb around a High Republic cruiser damaged from a crash in the past. The second Jedi or Survivor game, Jedi Order Survivor, like a lot of High Republic stuff, and so I just kind of like it. I like that we have this now. And then it's easy to go back and just go, hey, an olden time and a ship crash. And it's cool and it kind of connects, and who knows what will be there. So I just kind of like that exists.
Yeah, me too.
Looking at that death of Luke Skywalker, what you're talking about, just the inspiration that might have been, that you can draw from the story, which is present there at the end of Last Jedi. With Tamari Blagg, and then I can understand as much as I love the Rise of Skywalker, and we're going to be releasing our Rise of Skywalker commentary track publicly very soon. Stay tuned for that. But as much as I love the film, I understand the criticism of but I thought Luke's supposed to inspire stuff. This movie, they're not inspired, and I think there's some ground to talk about and cover, and that doesn't necessarily mean everyone's ready to go. They need a lead, they need help, they need a leader, they need to know they can come together. There's some discussions to have around it, but on the surface, I got it. If people were like, why here? Why not there? So I'd love to see it explored in this kind of way. I'd love to see someone who was, inspired by a story and can still be inspired by the story, but at a loss with the death or having to come to terms with the death of this icon in the galaxy in story. That's pretty cool. And I hope that we get more, like you were talking about it. Let's explore it in other places. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think Rise of Skywalker made really good choices in being like, there isn't a lot of there's nothing extraneous. It is laser focused, and it is really choosing its battles and its focuses in its storytelling. And I don't mind kind of having the headcanon of like, hey, the Resistance clearly rebuilt a lot from their diminished numbers at the end of Last Jedi, and a bunch of those people there listening to Poe and Finn's inspiring speech before they go to Exegol. How many of them are there because of Luke Skywalker? How many of the people who show up at the Battle of Exegol are there because of Luke Skywalker? I don't mind kind of taking that headcanon in. I think the choice that Rise of Skywalker made to me that is smart is Poe was the one who was past the wisdom of, hey, the battle in Last Jedi is just to keep the spark alive so eventually it can become a flame. And I love that his conflict throughout Rise of Skywalker is like, now I know that I get it. I'm in charge of this little flame of hope, and it's flickering. And if it was like the whole galaxy was inspired and everybody is running to stations because of Luke Skywalker, then that would have diminished Poe's great role in that film of like, I'm trying to keep that spark alive.
I agree.
So I get it.
Yeah.
But also, in terms of where else we could see it explored, I mean, maybe in the Rey and New Jedi Order movie. I mean, we'll check that George Nolfi interview.
Yeah. I'm trying to, I have a wandering brain a lot anyways, but I keep looking at it. There's nothing. It's more about politics. Actually, quite frankly, he's saying a lot of good things about George and the politics of Star Wars that might show up in future in his scripts and everything. So that's good. But anyways,
yeah. I mean, I think also like there is, I think that Skeleton Crew is an example of, I think, more of the kind of storytelling that I would love to see in Star Wars. Of the stakes are high because we know the characters, but the storytelling introduces an entirely different planet and community, and it's just as thrilling as the entire galaxy. And I would
Mhm.
love to see in different media more resistant stories set on specific planets. And I think that could be, there could be a planet we've never heard of that is a force,
Mhm.
very, very a community there. They're very force centric, right?
Mhm.
How do they react? Or maybe maybe like just like a real working class planet that's really, really values storytelling, the oral tradition, and the story
Mhm.
of Luke Skywalker comes, and that lights that planet on fire, and they, join the resistance. I
Mhm.
think there's a lot of stories to be told of more individual communities. The
Mhm.
animated series Resistance kind of did that, and I think
Yeah.
we could have a lot more stories like that of this community from this place is taking
Mm.
this action for these reasons.
I think that's an excellent point to bring Resistance in. What we kind of consider a underrated show around these parts. 2 seasons with some yoinks humor,
Hmm.
but also the best running joke ever, and Peep It, but also some really really good just direct. Here's the politics of the story going on, and here's
Hmm.
the whys in the house. Really good stuff. But yeah, exploring it in that kind of way, it'd be very, and that's why I kind of like this manga, right? Like this is, and then there was a question in some of the news releases about the canon level of it and everything. Not even to be worried about at this point, because
Hmm.
the Viz Media I think has done some canon adjacent stories, some canon stories. I don't want to get lost in that.
Hmm.
But what you're talking about, a little pocket of a story of someone who was affected, someone who
Yeah.
was inspired and influenced, and then that doesn't always. I'm inspired every day. It doesn't mean I know how to get up and do everything I want to do. You
Nope.
know, still need
Nope.
help.
Yeah, inspiration, it can be more easily accessed than time
Yeah.
and ability. I also wonder about like the Church of the Force, like
Ooh, yeah.
were they entirely wiped out in the Tuanal village?
Mm-hmm.
And how
Hmm.
would
Hmm.
a an organization that thought very highly of Luke Skywalker
Mm-hmm.
react?
Yeah. Ray's school is going forward in the future is another spot too. You could have the
Hmm.
comical effect. You could just whip pan with that camera over to like a large Marge kind of in memoriam holo photo of Luke, but also just not just simply her referencing. My master Luke taught me. My master Leia taught me this too. By the way, you would put that in there, but just who he came to be and what he did in his final acts, what that meant to Ray.
Hmm.
I'm sure that's going to factor in. I hope so.
Hmm.
I hope
Hmm.
so. The final thing about this, Joseph, this is a big blank space in being explored in the sequel era. There's the time between the stories. I know there's not a lot of time between Force Awakens and Last Jedi. You could have stories set in the span of about 5 minutes, but it's the era, and I think I get this sense and feeling, not just with the movie projects going forward. There just kind of seems little blips here and there, even like the Lego holiday specials that have things right after. Again,
Hmm.
canon adjacent. I'm not even worried about that, but just that um, and some of the books and everything covering Battle of Jakku and everything like that, and the comics going forward. I like that we seem to be finally pushing into the wide open territory of the sequel era outside of the film stories. Any others you want to explore in that timeline, or methods to put this exploration into effect?
Yeah, absolutely. And full credit to our friend Alex Damon. I watched his interview about the next wave of comic books,
Mm,
and Charles Soule was saying some really interesting things about this because his comic Legacy of Vader focusing on Kylo and Kylo's journey to sort
mhm,
of retrace the steps of Anakin immediately after the events of Last Jedi, and talking about how is Lucasfilm feeling about different things, and he talked about like, hey, if Kylo's retracing Anakin's steps, he really needs to go to Naboo.
mhm,
But then the story group has to go like, yeah, no, I agree with you. We got to make
mhm.
some decisions about Naboo then,
Right.
and how do we do that and be creative and keep the door open to other decisions? And I think that seems like that was a really interesting insight to maybe that some of the tentativeness with filling in that year a little bit more.
Mm.
So I'm really excited for that Legacy of Vader comic. I would
Yeah.
really love, if it's a book, if it's a comic book series, for Rey's journey to be filled out in that year. Like, we know there's that one Spark of Resistance book where
Hmm.
she goes off planet and she has an
Right.
adventure. We know they take down a big First Order ship in the story that's tied to the Galaxy's Edge theme park
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
Disneyland Disney World. And I believe there's books that help tell that story, all that kind of thing. We know that she ends up training with Rey or training with Leia, but like a book or a comic book series, kind of with Rey processing where's she at in her Jedi training, how does she get to the point she
Mm.
is in Rise of Skywalker, the healing of the blade, how Leia feels about training her, about how Leia feels about going to Agent Kloss, where she trained with, like, I think there's a lot of really
Lot.
interesting stuff to fill in with Rey and Leia in a medium where you can definitely have action, but also have room to be a little bit more introspective.
I really like that. You're pitching something. I almost say put that under your hat and go get a meeting, because that's a great way to just go into the mind of Leia during that time, into the mind of Rey during that time. That'd be fascinating, and have the ability to flash back or connect back
Yeah.
to the past.
Yeah. I also
That's a
just
win.
think, like we're talking before, an animated series, a book series, whatever, just like more tales of resistance in different
Yeah.
communities would be fun as well.
And valuable.
Mhm.
Small pockets of resistance.
How about you? What kind of storytelling do you want to see in that year between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker?
I really would love to see. Well, we're getting a lot with Kylo. I would love a year of failed leadership from Kylo. That he rises to the role he wants. He dresses for the job he wants, and he gets it. And then the torment and the panic and the fear and the hauntings and the visions of Han and his mother and everything. Like, I'd be interested in that, but I think we're exploring not that we're exploring Kylo too much. But when you're talking about the pockets of resistance, we look at Janna and her crew, and I know a lot of people in the past have complained, even I'll say, about, hey, there should have been more with Finn and the rise of the stormtroopers and they all look to him. I love how it played out, but I think you could. That's a what if where I'm like, yeah, no, that would have been great. They did this, and I think this is great. You don't, but you get lost in the weeds on that. But more of the, like, that ship crashes. And I'm not saying I want Jaina and her crew, Janna and her crew. I don't need the day to day of that. But, those kind of stories I'm sure they weren't alone, like you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you want to, tell a story in terms of Lando going planet to planet, and how does that old scoundrel convince people to hear the inspirations of Luke, to hear, we going to do this, to see, I don't know, whatever's going on above Endor, where they're pulling their own holdo into a First Order or a Final Order ship. Like, how do we get to those moments? That moment of it's just people. We get the stories of the people. I think that ties strongly into what you're talking about, the pockets of resistance. I'd love to see that explored and build that up beyond just even the main characters, so we get to enjoy in the film.
Yeah. That's some great stuff. You're reminding me of the headcanon a lot of people have that I like, that maybe Lando told Luke's story to inspire people to get to the Battle of Exegol.
Yeah. Could be. Right. Absolutely.
And here's my big pitch. We got to do some Ewok focus since Jennifer can't join us today. What if Disney Plus made a one-off live action film called The Battle for Endor 2?
Yes.
And it was, Wicket and his son.
Absolutely.
Wild. And also just like the hubris of, like, what was the First Order doing there, right? Is it just total, like, Kylo being like, I can finish everything my grandfather started. Like, I can beat those teddy bears.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any tactical reason to be on the Sanctuary Moon of Endor? No. But I want it. Just out of bitterness,
It's when you get vindictive people in politics, where they're doing an entire thing just to spite, just to get the win that they didn't have, or the people before them didn't have. I think you would have like a former Imperial officer who was stationed on Endor. You and I was talking for years. Have talked about the story behind a tree. There's always early Star Wars, modern Disney canon. There always seemed to be someone hiding behind a tree on Endor. So maybe we can get that story. If they're like, we're going back, Kylo, we can kill those bears. We're gonna do it, and that drove them there.
That'd be amazing.
There you go. We'll keep you updated when the story comes out or when more information is announced at Star Wars Celebration. Final story of the day, a little one here, but it's big because it pays homage to two wonderful careers. Kathleen Kennedy and Frank Marshall are set to receive new honors. Exclusive from the Hollywood Reporter says Kathleen Kennedy and Frank Marshall will be honored at the Oscar Wilde Awards on February 27th. This is a nonprofit created by the U.S.-Ireland Alliance. The Oscar Wilde Awards celebrate those from Ireland who contribute to film, music, and television. Are they Irish? No, not really, but close enough. There's some Irish blood in there somewhere, I'm sure. This is not unusual for the organization, though, and the U.S.-Ireland Alliance founder Trina Vargo said the Irish are known as being great storytellers, and you can't find two greater storytellers in the history of filmmaking than Kathleen Kennedy and Frank Marshall. So love this. Get your thoughts here in the war. But my big question is, Joseph, it's 2025. And what do we think of some of Kathleen Kennedy's most notable accomplishments as a head of Lucasfilm Limited? What do we think? Because it's been about 13 years of that name inciting a lot of discourse and a lot of just bullshit. But we're here to support her. So anyways, thoughts on the award and this big question?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll go back to my Qui-Gon Lynch moment this weekend of your focus determines your reality of like we're in an era where I want to just be a little bit more blunt. A lot of the criticisms that you'll find online of Kathleen Kennedy are just straight up sexism. But I also agree that there are good faith people who are like, yeah, there have been some fumbles. There have been films that didn't make as much money as they maybe could have, and there have been lots of directors put on projects and taken off projects. There have been announcements made that then haven't been followed through, and some of that is going to fall on her because she is the leader of Lucasfilm. So, granted, I've stated the legitimate good faith criticisms. The big picture is massive creative and financial success. The vast majority of the films and television shows are well reviewed and have made millions of dollars. Her swing and risk on the Mandalorian television show generated, supported that streaming service, made it happen, and made, Grogu and Din Djarin right now the new face of Star Wars. We know that some of the choices that have been difficult have been from Bob Iger. Bob Iger has personally taken responsibility for the decision to release Solo too close to The Last Jedi, as not Kathleen Kennedy. So what would have Solo done or been if Kathleen Kennedy had been left alone to follow her instincts? And I think a lot of the things that she gets blamed for, we don't know. Were they Iger's decision? Were they Chapek's decision? All that kind of thing. What I celebrate the most about Kathleen Kennedy's era is, I can't remember which documentary. She's talking about how the original Star Wars films were successful because they were personal. Because this was George's beliefs. This was George's idiosyncratic tastes. And that's what she's looking for in creators, is people who want to put their personal stamp on things. And I think that she has done two things. I think when she took over, she threw the doors open and said, who's exciting, who's interesting, who's unique, who has a vision, and who might we invite to play in the sandbox of Star Wars. And then as it shakes out, she found great collaborators and put her back behind them. J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, Jon Favreau, promoting Dave Filoni, all sorts of great creative decisions. And then I think she had the strength and wisdom to pull the plug when it was headed in the wrong direction. And I understand that people can see that as a criticism. I understand that it's difficult to kind of have faith that a Star Wars project announced is going to happen. But I think Solo is a better movie for the decision that she made. I think Rise of Skywalker is a much better movie for having James J. Abrams do it than Colin Trevorrow. That those decisions, I think, were made to protect the heart and soul of Star Wars in not easy ones, and ones that she's taken a hit for. But as we've talked about a lot, some of the most famous, beloved movies in history, there's nothing but mess behind the scenes. And you don't know that, or you don't care. Casablanca is just a brilliant movie and one of the best movies ever made. And a hot mess behind the scenes. And I think she had the wisdom and the longevity to know 20 years from now, it's going to be a fun little factoid that Ron Howard took over halfway through. And the movie will be there. The movie will be what people see. And if Wikipedia still exists and they decide to stay up late after watching Solo to read about it, it'll be a, cool. And she had the vision to know that's more important, the legacy of Solo, than the hot tabloid take in 2018.
All well said there, celebrating all the things we love and the tough questions that are fair to ask, right? Yeah, I'm with you on some of the stuff right now. The faith and the hope of announced projects come together, but I think it goes beyond just her, and that's one of the things I admire of her in this era. She knows the stakes of the job. She knows she goes out to every convention, puts on a nice sport coat and sneakers, and goes out in front of the people. She is not opposed to being the face of this. She's not a boss hidden away. And like I said, I'm glad you acknowledge. Yeah, good faith criticisms here and there, but we also don't know all the stories. You got the human thumb, Bob Chapek. You got Iger in his sweaters. I appreciate when Iger is open and honest about things that he feels that maybe he did wrong. Chapek, we don't know. Never got to finish that Elton John concert. He's out. But Kathleen Kennedy and some of the stories, and we don't know what's true. It's why you don't lean on them. But like some of the controversial directors weren't necessarily her choice, and she ended up doing what I believe with you is right for the heart of Star Wars. And but celebrating her entire career, celebrating Frank Marshall's career. Talk about a couple that has gone on for decades in Hollywood, bringing to all of us this wonderful magic. I absolutely adore them and their legacy and their work, and I'm so happy that they continue to get awarded and nominated by people that know. The people are there, people in the industry. It means a lot, and I'll be forever thankful. Any missteps, you're always going to have missteps. George had missteps, all right? I'm not just talking about prequels. I'm just talking about other things. George had missteps. Every artist you enjoy occasionally did something that was, well, I respect the effort. I love David Bowie. I do not know why he and Mick Jagger did Dance on the Streets. I don't know, but I love it, but it's there. But primary colors everywhere. But I really, really think she will stand the test of time. And yeah, to get in the weeds in some of it, it's beyond frustrating. That's why I phrase it in 2025. It's 2025 now. And this really started to pick up steam in the 2015, 2016 range. It was always present. I'm talking about the pushback against Kathleen Kennedy. But in the moment there was more than one film or project to question, this is when stuff started sliding in here. And I don't know, there might have been political things going on in 2016 that maybe made people feel they were more empowered to attack her. I even saw this the other day recently, like people loving the Skeleton Crew publicly posting that they blame her, that there's less people watching because of the woke ideology of the previous project, right? Like it just ignorant stuff.
Yep.
Ignorant stuff. And she's like Luke and Last Jedi. Keep doing what she's doing. All the stories of she's going to be replaced. All those scoopers. All those grifters. She's going to be replaced. She's still standing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And two other things I wanted to mention in particular. So we're talking about Kathleen Kennedy in Lucasfilm, and but this article I hadn't really focused on. Well, of course, she stopped working on the company that she owned with her husband, Frank Marshall. But Frank Marshall would go on, and man, I did not realize that Frank Marshall and the Kennedy Marshall Company paying attention to the documentaries.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen The Other Side of the Wind yet, but I really want to, about Orson Welles' final film. But two of the documentaries, Ken. We'll turn this into Documentary Center for a second,
Love it.
for a moment, because I know you love documentaries and music documentaries.
Mm-hmm.
Sinatra, All or Nothing at All, I will say, is a Sinatra head. I have read many, many, many books on Sinatra. I know his life and career quite well. That is by far the most honest, insightful, fair-handed tale of Sinatra's life and how it intersects with the culture of the time. And then my wife loves the Bee Gees, and I have benefited from this. That Bee Gees documentary, the Bee Gees, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart? I feel like every person our age, but particularly dudes our age, should be made to watch that documentary.
It's great. It's great.
It's a fabulous, beautiful, heartbreaking documentary. It's so incredibly well made, and that documentary about a band made parts of my entire life make more sense.
Yes,
because of the cultural truth behind the rise and the fall of the Bee Gees.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So good job, Frank Marshall, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a. Did I not see this? I guess I didn't see the Sinatra doc. Now I have a new doc to watch this weekend. Yeah, the Bee Gees one is great, and it's heartbreaking, and the story's heartbreaking. But talk about the tie it all together at the beginning. I grew up going, oh man, yeah, the Bee Gees, remember disco, and disco sucks, and the Bee Gees sucked, and it was a joke. Like I grew up with that as a pop culture lesson. And number one, far from the truth. And also, the idea of disco sucks comes from a very problematic starting point that we all should be aware of. How it is steeped in racism and homophobia. And doesn't mean if you have to love disco but like it's beyond that. And the story of the Bee Gees is so beyond one very successful soundtrack of an era at the time. And I love that the doc goes into all that.
Yeah, it's so good. Final thing for me with Kathleen Kennedy's legacy, and I'm curious your thoughts on this. I feel like, obviously everybody involved with Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy included, was hoping that Dial of Destiny would be a massive hit. I think that it isn't just the film; it is the expense of the film and the era it came out in, where people aren't going to the theater as much, the amount of time that had passed. All that kind of stuff that contributed to it not doing as well at the box office as hoped. But I also feel like that is a movie that is made to stand the test of time. As James Mangold was saying in one of his real honest interviews, like, we wanted to make a really great, really fun Indiana Jones movie. We wanted it to be an honest movie that is about a man near the end of his life, and not just pretending it's the past, but to take that approach made it so much deeper, so much more honest. And I just love that she sticks to everything that made that late 70s, early 80s era of Lucas and Spielberg kind of redefining cinema. That, blockbusters, keep the audience entertained, make sure there's spectacle, keep them moving. All those things that both of them did are underpinned by absolute emotional truth. And I love that she keeps fighting for that, even in a film like Indiana Jones, where it's like, Harrison's just about 80. This is going to be a film that's going to be honest about that while also being a fun spectacle. And I love that she keeps fighting for like the honesty in the spectacle.
The honesty and the spectacle. The story of Kathleen Kennedy. There you go. A Frank Marshall doc. I'm going to put together. Well said, as always, sir. Congratulations to Kathleen Kennedy and Frank Marshall for their award February 27th at the Ebell Theater, pretty locally there. Maybe you can sneak in. Are you Irish at all? You Irish? Got any Irish?
Not a bit. Not a bit.
Maybe
my Norwegian ancestors and my English ancestors probably not particularly well loved by the Irish, so I'm sorry.
Our ForceCenter longtime listener, David Mackay from Belfast there, we can maybe get him over. Maybe he can walk us in for the event. Maybe he can get us in there. John C. Reilly is also going to be presented with something there by his old buddy Will Ferrell. So should be a fun night there if you're attending we'll look for reports here on ForceCenter. That's it for now. We're out of here. Thank you for listening, supporting us not only today but all through the years. You can find us on social media, ForceCenter Pod. But like Joseph said up top, Blue Sky, kind of the big spot right now. Promotional stuff is out on other spots too. But if you want to interact with us, Blue Sky is the spot. Podcasts available in a lot of spots. iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more. Just search, you'll find us. Merch available in two Utah spots. tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter and at our Fourth Wall Shop links on our YouTube page. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, hit that like button, hit that notification bell so you don't miss things. I do apologize. I haven't been able to do the pop-up vertical live streams in a while because my Mondays have been a mess. We'll get back to those. Any one of us could pop up at any time on a live stream. Patreon.com/ForceCenter is where you can support us directly. Thank you for helping us reach our goals there. Follow me at CatNapsuck. And currently, CatNapsuck.com. My website, I didn't know there was a thing. Websites, man. Remember, I feel we're back in 2002, Joseph, where we all have our websites are the only constant in the world, so I need to maintain it. There's a shop on there if you want to get some stuff. I'm selling Star Wars toys there as well. Joseph, where can they find and follow and continue to support your efforts?
Hey, my website, josephscrimshaw.com, has links to my blog called Finish Your Monsters. I try to put it out every Tuesday about artistic adventures and trying to keep forward, setting goals for yourself. Put a call out for people if they wanted to do a sketch, because one of the things I do every week is a little sketch in my little blog letter. So you can check out the most recent one by going to josephscrimshaw.com and see if you want to send in a sketch. You can also follow me on Blue Sky. That link is on my website as well.
It is indeed. There you go. So for all of the brothers Gibb alive and in our past and on our hearts, we'll see you next time here on ForceCenter.